Thank you very much indeed for inviting me to be here today. I have to say that this is not the kind of presentation you are used to, so I beg you to be open-minded. I'm going to talk about UX, the user experience, and the application design process. This is a good example to understand the difference between user interface and user experience, UI and UX. On the left side, we have everything we need to interact with the product. We have the bottle, we have the cup, we have the ketchup. But on the right side, we have something added. We have changed the position of the bottle. Now we need less smacks on the bottom of the bottle. So we can say that we can get easily the product out. So we can say that we have improved the user experience. But it doesn't mean that it has to end here. We can keep improving, searching for new materials, recyclable materials, anti-drip dispensers, how to show the expiration reminders outside the bottle. And doesn't mean that the user needs are changing over time, always. When we talk about UX, we tend to think only about usability. It's something it's easy to use or not. But there are other concepts included in this subject. Like, for example, information architecture. That is how we organize information in a website or a web application. Things like interaction design or content strategy, that is how we label or what's the writing tone of the application. And of course, functionality. Talking about UX is the way we work too, because we normally use a cyclical process that can guarantee that the product is improving at every stage. We call it user-centered design. It starts with a defined step or how we get the requirements, then the design step. When I say design, I'm not referring to graphic design. I'm talking about the shape we give to our application. Then always validate with users, and when we are sure that this is going to work, we start the development. After the development, for sure we are going to get some insights from users, and then the process can start again. Some people say that this process is an endless process. I don't know anything about your projects, but at least all of mine has a deadline. So if you have time, you can try it forever. We're going to start with the first step, research. In this table, you have all the methodologies we have to get information about users, but we are only to cover the ones we carry out at BSc. The first is the interview, is the most famous methodology to get information. We get information about problems, barriers, desires of users. But we waste a lot of time with this because they run one-to-one, and this is the problem of interviews. Here are the focus groups. They are quick, but we have a problem with this, that some people get shy where they are in the presence of other people, and we run the risk of losing some information. On the right side here, we have what we call Ethnography Studies. The Ethnography Studies is when the user experience expert has to go to the place of the user and observe them interacting with their own tools. So this is very useful because in this context, we can see barriers that even the users haven't detected. So this is why they are very, very important. And this, the last one, but not least, are co-creation workshops. I consider them like an evolution of the focus groups, and they have an advantage. in these kind of activities, the users first work individually, and then they vote to the others' ideas to get one of them. But you don't lose any information, because you have all the ideas of all the participants. Then we go to conceptualization and prototyping steps. We go from something like this, that we call sketches. These are cheap, fast, handwritten, and let us to explore several options very quick, and we don't fall in love with our designs. We can share them with our team and get feedback in early stages of the process, so they are very good. Here are wireframes. They are something more accurate, with more high fidelity, and these are very useful for programmers because they have all the information they need about the elements of the screen, and in every point they have information about how every element works. We use many different tools to do this kind of tools, but I recommend something a collaborative tool online like USpin, because it's very easy to share your wireframes and get feedback in real time. And in the end, we have interactive prototypes. I say that they are not functional because we don't have any code behind them, but we can define navigation and interaction. So when the user is working with this, has the sense that is working with something that is really working. So they are very useful for user testing. Things to keep in mind when we are designing an application. One is hierarchy and patterns. If we see this, for example, this example of a web page, automatically we are going to identify the main menu. And without any interaction, we are going to understand that if we click in one of these elements, all of this area under the menu is going to change. And we are identifying too the double panel selector, and we say, okay, if we click in one element of this list, the content on the right side is going to be updated. The same with inline list. If we click in one element and we see that the element slides down, all of this information here, we think that it's related to the element in which we have clicked on. This is because all of these are patterns, are things that we recognize easily because over time, surfing the web, we have to learn how to work with it. And if we use patterns to design our applications, it's a guarantee that the user is going to understand how it works. But what happens when we don't have any reference, we are innovating, and we don't have any example, and we don't have any pattern? So one thing, we have two weapons here. One is guarantee that the learning curve is easy, the user is learning quick how it works, and then doing a lot of user testing to be sure that our solution, our application, is going to be understood. Another important thing is navigation. Navigation is one of the most important elements. We are going to see an example of with an script of NOMAD Encyclopedia. It's important because it gives a sense of location to the user, the deep of this website or application. It can say, where am I? Or how can I back to the main page here, where I am in the overview? What's the path to get here? What's the element, for example, we are consulting now? And elements like, how can I get more information in every section? when we talk about interaction, we are referring to big elements like lists with complex interaction, and then we can refer to small elements like buttons. In these examples, when we are talking about the small elements, we call them micro-interactions. When we are working with applications that are running in multi-device platforms, we have to be careful because some interaction that works in some device are not working in mobile devices, for example. So we have to define the interaction depending on the device. And sometimes it's very complex because we have interaction everywhere in an application. Now we are going to see a video about the first time someone had to deal with a book in the Middle Ages to explain better one of these concepts. Sorry.
No touch screen. Hvis det hadde vært så enkelt, så hadde jeg jo blitt kalt helpdesk, hadde jeg vel? Nei, det er sant. Du kan se på en sånn? Nei, det er sant. Så bare gjør der. Sånn. Ja, da er vi i gang. Ja, så langt kom jeg også. Ok. Men så stoppet det opp, og så var jeg redd for at nå teksten skulle forsvinne, så jeg turte å gå videre. Ja, ok. Nei, men du skjønner, inni her, så ligger det kanskje flere 100 sider med lagret tekst. Så kan du komme videre, så tar du tak i et ark, på måten her, og så blar du over på neste side sånn, da fortsetter teksten der. Det blar, altså. Du blar. Men jeg skal tilbake da. Ja, da blar du tilbake igjen på tak der, og så er du tilbake til den teksten. Ok, så slutter der, og så fortsetter den der. Ok, men hva jeg skal avslutte da, hva gjør du da? Ja, bare slår du sammen permene. Ja. På den måten der. Sånn. Der ligger alt lagret inni der. Jeg skal risikere ikke å miste noe av teksten her nå. Alt ligger lagret inni her nå. Det tilfellet som du fyrer på, eller det er kanskje det ligger så sykt. Ja, ok. For det er noe med det at når man holder på med skriftruller, så tar det litt til å konvertere til å bla i en bøk. Ja. Ja, men du før du går. Du bare går inn en gang til. Jeg åpner sånn, og så, hva kaller det? Jeg blar frem og tilbake, og når jeg er ferdig, så bare lukker jeg den. Flott, litt der, kjempefri. Ja, men du, vent, ikke sant? Nå er det sånn igjen, nå får jeg ikke åpne den. Det er ikke like inn, altså. Åpne fra den siden der, sånn. Der nå. Ja, vel. Har du ikke manualer, eller? Manualer, selvfølgelig, så manualer som brukerveiledning. Ja, den da. Ja, det er det samme problemet. Får du på?
Well, well, it can seem a little bit exaggerated, but when we move this experience to nowadays, when we have to deal with virtual reality or voice recognition, maybe we change our mind. I want to play a different video, humoristic too, about voice recognition elevator for Scottish people.
Install voice recognition technology in this lift that everyone has.
Voice recognition technology in a lift in Scotland. Ever tried voice recognition technology?
No,
They don't do Scottish accents.
11.
Could you please repeat that?
11. 11.
You need to try an American accent.
11. 11. Sounds Irish,
Doesn't it?
Where in America is that? Dublin?
I'm sorry. Could you please repeat that?
Try an English accent. 11. 11.
You from the same part of Ireland as Dick Van Dyke.
Please speak slowly and clearly.
If you don't understand the lingo, away back here to your own country.
Ooh, is that talk now, is it?
Oh, don't start, Mr. Bleeding-Heart. How can you be racist to a lift?
Please speak slowly and clearly.
11. 11.
You're just saying it the same way.
You keep saying it till I understand Scottish, alright? 11. 11.
What do you say it's hey, now you're cow?
This is a voice-activated elevator. Please state which floor you would like to go to in a clear and calm manner.
Calm. Where's that coming from? Why is it telling people to be calm?
Because if you would be selling this to Scottish people who'd be going out for months.
You have not selected a floor.
I would have. 11.
If you would like to get out of the elevator without selecting a floor, simply say, "Open the doors, please."
Please. Please. Stop command all day. Please. I'm ready enough for nothing.
Open the doors, please.
Please. Pathetic.
Please remain calm.
Just wait for it to speak.
You have not selected a floor.
This is a different situation. We are more empathetic with this.
What's the hell?
In Scotland.
And then we have the step of graphic design. Some people say that graphic design is something aesthetic, it's an aesthetic matter, but it's not true because a good design can reinforce the goals of our application or convert it into something that nobody is going to use. So it's not just the cherry on top of an application. Finally, well, this step, finally, the user testing. I like a lot this quote by Bram Stoker: "We learn from failure, not from success." Even we haven't done any user research, or we have made a lot of mistakes during the design step, we always have to do an user testing because we can get a lot of information about how the user interacts with the product, if someone is understanding something or not. It's important because the user is, when interacts with the platform, with the app, is using their own language. So this is very important. Also, when we have some task in this application, and we have to guarantee that the user is able to finish all of these tasks. I want to share with you, well, at BSc we have something like an eye tracker. This is a device that we use for measure the eyes activity of the user. We can know what are the most visible areas, these red ones, and we have also information about the track of the eyes of the user. This is very useful when we have to validate visualizations. I want to share with you this project that we did at BSc for Sonar 2015. Sonar is a music festival in Barcelona, and BSc wanted to show what was the activity between stages and what was the stages with more success or with more activity. They decided to use this kind of graphs full of notes and links, and especially this one, that it's like a heat map. The color scale is okay, but the problem is that they choose white or yellow to show more activity. And they decided to do that because they say, the visualization experts, that we have more cones inside our eye, so it's easy to us to detect yellow colors. And this is true, but they forgot something, that as social humans, social people, we have social conventions related to colors. So when we see red, we automatically think about more activity, more things, danger. So the user is going to see more the red than the yellow. And now we are going to see the user testing we did to test this infographic, in which you can see that all of the users say that they find some problems with this color scale, or there is something wrong here. Sorry, it is in Spanish, but it's translated to English.
Así solo con estos 10 segundos, tú puedes imaginar que trata la gráfica,
All of them are researchers.
Antes no había
Me había fijado que es colores distintos y quería ver si hay algún patrón topológico. Hay una diferencia. Primero, hay una diferencia de color que yo no considero muy bien. Lo percibo, pero solo mirando la leyenda me di cuenta que realmente es distinto los dos azules.
¿No lo habías percibido?
No.
¿Has observado las leyendas de los días?
Sí. Sí, pero ahora cuando me dijiste el día, no sé, creo 18, y entonces vi y digo, sale de 20.
Pero hasta entonces no lo habías visto.
Y me estaba preguntando desde el principio qué coño son estas separaciones. Porque tú, si ves que hay una explicación, te puedes saltar la explicación si quieres y mirar directamente el gráfico. Pero así, me pones el gráfico, me obligas un poco a mirar el gráfico.
¿Cuál te parece que fueron los horarios en el día 18, por ejemplo en planta, ¿vale? En la sala planta, con más afluencia de público?
Hombre, entre 16 y...
¿Vale?
Sí, por ejemplo, eso es lo que quiero decir. Más caliente, ¿no?
Nada, pero fijo. Sin saber qué son estas cosas como habíamos las diferentes áreas son.
Por ejemplo, si me tuvieras que explicar la actividad del jueves 18, ¿por qué te ríes?
Los grafos los veo demasiado sobrecargados, demasiada información. Y no es fácil de comprender. Creo que es demasiado complejo para lo que quiero mostrar. Me veo el texto de number of distance que acabo antes. De hecho, ni siquiera me había fijado en una línea azul, que es lo primero que comentaba el texto. Iba a hacer unos datos más oscuros.
¿Qué quieres que esté sorprendente?
Al revés, tendría que ser más, yo por lo menos, Paulo es más alto, más tonalidad, que resalte más. Necesito que resalte más, o sea, creo que me resalta más sobre los rojos. Pero si queréis que lo entienda, mi sensación.
Pero para ti es una altura
Cuando... Sí, me gusta mucho. Y
So they realized that there were too much complex graphs in the infographic. They were using the same graphs for different metaphors and the problem with the color scale. So they changed and they did a new version, complex too, but well, at least they fixed a lot of problems. And now I'm going to share with you my experience working in a multidisciplinary team, because I think it's very useful. People I have to deal with, first, project managers. They work very close to the client. The client is the person who normally they are paying our salaries. So I understand that the project manager is very always focused in keeping happy the client, but we have to keep in mind that the needs of our client are not the needs of our user, and this is very important. Another problem we have is with programmers. They always focus on technology, fixing things, and I know, I understand it's complicated when you ask for something like, hey, please, make me a change in a small button or with a micro interaction. So you can imagine the answer of programmers. The best thing I've ever done in my life have been to invite them to my user testing sessions, because there is nothing more convincing than showing a user having problems with the interface they are programming. So I recommend, if you have problems like this, invite programmers to the user testing. And finally, you can designers like this as well. It's not important if it's useful or not. It's beautiful, and that's all it is. We normally work with people or designers, graphic designers, aligned to user experience or usability with some knowledge about this, because the work is more fluent, of course. At this point, I want to say thanks to all the people I work with. Diana, the graphic designer, Johan, Iker, the programmers, Claudia, and Georg, like my managers. And I have to say, I don't have this kind of problems with them. They're always open to do changes, improvements, and always with a smile on their faces. So it's a great experience to work with you. And to finish, I want to give or show some bad examples of bad UX. I have to say that I'm completely obsessed with architecture problems, and especially with bathroom problems. All of these examples are related to bathrooms that exist in the real life. And if you think that this is something like in a bad taste, you are right, but I'm the presenter. So this is what I call intimate and private. This is perfect for focus groups or meetings because you can share easily ideas and other things. Saving time and water, because the same time you are cleaning your hands, you are cleaning the urinal, and this is very good. Very good idea. Who needs privacy? This is perfect when you're searching for someone in the toilet. Does anybody see the problem here? This is a bathroom for people with disabilities. So what about the distance to the roll? What I call cheek to cheek. If you realize, all of these bathrooms are focused on socializing people. This is one of the best. Desperate diseases need desperate remedies. What can I do if the door don't close? So I can show the door. And this is one example, but why graphic design is very important, because the first time you enter in somewhere like this, what happened here? And it's only a problem of the beautiful marble design, but it's completely clean. But the user experience here it's very bad because of the graphic design. And finally, this is the last one. Sometimes the problem is not that obvious. Both of them are very beautiful bathrooms, full of light, clean. But does anybody see the problem here? A clue. The problem is on the left side. This is a good example to explain that sometimes we use things that are not working in the proper way. Normally, we have the controls under the water point, and when we are interacting with them, sometimes we get wet. But on the right side, we have the control outside of this area. So this is improving the user experience. So, and that's all. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Luz, for bringing smiles on the audience faces. Any questions regarding user experience?
The difference between users and clients, I didn't get it. So, as I'm not in this business, so what is the difference between clients and users?
Normally, when you start a project, the client, who is paying the salaries, has an idea of what the user needs. And they told you, well, I have to do an application with this functionality because I know my user and all their needs. And normally, this is not true. You have the client requirements, and then you have to do some user research to check if what the client says is correct or not. Because you have to show them, if it's not, that the user needs or barriers are totally different to create something, an application that this is useful for final users.